right, everybody, we are here today in sunny California, and it's January 2nd, 2022, and we are here with Heidi Newell and her horse Spirit, and this is part of Amelia Grace Farm. And so Heidi, tell us a little bit about Amelia Grace Farm and what you do here and what Spirit does here and all God is doing here.
All right.
So first thing, who are you and what do you do here?
Okay, I'm Heidi Newell, and I'm founder and director of Amelia Grace Farm. And this is Spirit. This is our very first horse, and our only horse at this present time. We have the blessing of using about 14 horses that belong to private owners, and they allow us to use them in our program. And we have about 30 volunteers, I would say, and we usually do group sessions where we have about 6 or 7 kids, either foster boys or foster girls, or anywhere from we work with adults also.
All right, Heidi, so tell me about the people that you serve. You have groups of girls and boys, foster kids, or other kids going through challenges, and tell me about kind of what your program looks like. You said you only have one horse here, but you have like a bunch of others that you borrow.
Yes.
So tell me about what your program looks like.
So we usually run on weeknights, and a normal program would involve about 6 or 7 kids. They each have their own mentor or big buddy, so they're little buddy and big buddy. And then we have 2 licensed therapists and an equine specialist, and we do a group session with about 6 or 7 horses and 6 or 7 kids. We start in this area over here, and we have a roundup where we kind of check in and we go through different topics. And so a lot of our topics are TBRI, trauma-informed training, and so we help the kids figure out more about themselves and more about healthy relationships. That's really what it all boils down to, is we are using the horse as a great mentor for a relationship, which is really what they're so good at.
Awesome. So Heidi, you mentioned TBRI, and I know you and I, Wings of Hope Branch and Hitching Post and Saddleback Church all partnered last summer, and during COVID we did a Zoom course through Saddleback on TBRI. So for people
Yes.
who don't know what that is, help us understand, what is TBRI?
Sure. It's trauma-informed training. It's special training for kids from hard places. And its main core principles are connection, empowerment, and correction. And it really focuses on setting up healthy relationships where we draw in. Instead of time out, we do time in. Instead of saying no, we try to say our best yes. There's still correction involved, but there's more do-overs and second chances, and it's a more positive experience as opposed to what the kids are probably more used to, or what a lot of us are more used to. But it's a very embracing, connecting type of relationship, just like what the horses will do.
So your ranch is very serious about TBRI, and so tell me about how you bring that into your program. Who also gets TBRI training?
Sure. So when the kids are dropped off, they're dropped off either by a parent, a foster parent, an adoptive parent, or somebody like that. And it's mandatory when you drop your child off for this free program. It's mandatory that one adult from each family stays for our TBRI classes. And so what the parents are learning in the classroom, we also are using the same material for that session for the kids. So if they're going to be working on empowerment, we're going to be training the parents or caregivers the same as the kids, and so they can go home and they can talk about it, they can practice it. We're going to model it here, and then they're going to bring it home and practice it over the week.
So Heidi, I've known you for a long time, and I know that this ranch is all about glory to God and serving God. So tell me about how He has shown up and provided for Amelia Grace Farm, or even surprised you over the last couple of years.
Well, I've had this dream for many years, and been blessed to raise kids and even have an adopted child. And so I thought maybe that was my calling, and so maybe the farm was just going to be a family thing. But then as my kids grew up, I realized that I wanted to spend maybe an hour a week serving in some sort of equine ministry. So I looked around and I couldn't find anything, and at the same time Allison was telling me about a class for biblically based equine assisted learning. And so I decided to take it, and when I took the class, I realized that everybody in the class had horses, had a ranch, had a ministry already, and I had none of those things. And so the very first week we had homework, and I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do? Am I going to practice on my dog or my husband? Which I did. But in that very first week, I looked and found this place, Serrano Creek Stables, and I found Brave Grace, and I met up with them, and they allowed me to use their horses, and they were already, what was absolutely a God, just a miracle, is that they were already doing a similar type of horse training to what biblically based equine assisted learning is doing with the Mustang Maddie. And then they also had trained therapists and social workers that were already doing the equine ministry. And so I just, so what ended up happening is I had a bunch of people that didn't have access to horses and were like me. They wanted to do this, but they didn't have any access, and we were able to partner with Brave Grace and just begin the program right away here. They had everything set up, and although it's not the farm that I wanted and it's not the acreage I wanted, and it doesn't have everything that I thought we needed, God was very, very clear that we just needed people, we needed mentors, we needed to train up mentors to come alongside these foster children and really support them in going through this program.
Okay, so Heidi, prior to God showing you how you could start a ranch for foster kids with just nothing, like you didn't even own a horse or anything, and you met up with the folks from Brave Grace and just partnered and started a ministry at this ranch with really nothing. Prior to that, you and your family were serving somewhere else, and so tell me about that. What came before Brave Grace and Amelia Grace Farm?
Yes, we were serving at a group home for women that are rescued from sex trafficking, and it's called Vera Sanctuary, and they had 30 beds at the time, and we just served meals there, and we developed relationships with the girls, and as I would speak with them, they were very interested in animals. They wanted to be around horses, they wanted to be around with dogs and cats, and so I thought it would be neat to be able to bring them in as our first pilot programs, and so we did, and Lori Burns was wonderful. She allowed us to start these pilot programs, and the girls just did so well, and that's really what motivated us to continue and grow the program.
So you started with Vera Grace's clientele here,
Yes.
and you didn't even have a horse here. You just borrowed Brave Grace's therapists and horses,
Exactly.
and you came over and did a pilot program with young women.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then after that, that's when you decided, wow, this is totally possible. We don't need acreage or a whole
Right.
barn full of horses. We just use what God provides right here. So then that's when the kids program started.
That's when the kids program started, and then because we were having a parking problem, we were having so many people park because the adults all stay for the TBRI classes, and then the kids all come, and we had the mentors and the therapists, and we had so many people here. We were having a parking problem, and so we started to use the park next door, and that has turned into just a miracle space because it has picnic tables for eating, it has a playground for the kids to help regulate themselves and get out some of their wiggles so they can be calm and alert when they're with the horses, and there's tons of parking, and God just really provided this space for us that we could have never envisioned, and there's beautiful mature trees and shade when we need it. And
so you needed a place for people to park, and you needed a place where you could have people congregate and kids to play and get all their sensory needs met. And lo and behold, like literally, I'm just going to turn the camera around, and there's the park right behind that barn there. You just walk over through a gate, and it's a public park, and it allows horses in the park. I mean, that's just unheard of. It's unheard of. And tell me about, so you do meals even over there in the public park. What's the meals about?
Well, that has turned into
Speaking of meals,
speaking of
some of her meals on you.
yes, is it on me?
No, you're good.
Okay, so that has been the biggest blessing too, because in our society, in our culture right now, we are just rushing from one thing to the next, and all these kids are over programmed, and you think, oh, I have a hurting child from a hard place, and I want to get them in all these programs, and so you're running and running, and you never sit down for a family meal. And so what ended up happening is during a summer camp, we had someone volunteer to cook for, that's just her gift. She wanted to cook for 50 or 60 people, and so we set it all up in the park, and the people came, and that ended up being one of the most precious times. It was just really, we knew people were coming from work and were coming to the program, and we wanted them not to be stressed, and so we wanted to provide food. But what ended up happening is everybody sat around and ate, and it became this time of fellowship. And it was really clear that God has designed us for fellowship beyond anything. It was just a time to sit and talk with each other, and that's what horses are so good at too. I mean, they live for their relationships with each other, and we just don't slow down enough, and they slow us down. The park slowed us down, the meal slowed us down, and that became a part that people were so excited about, and that
so
missed.
the dinner, the meal was the parents, the volunteers, the kids, pretty much everyone that's going to be involved in this program would meet for the meal first, and then everyone would go after the meal to the parents' class or to the kids to the sessions, or like you said earlier, the girls would do art one week and art in the park one week and horses the opposite week, and the boys did a wood shop one week and then horses the next. So you really you doubled your reach because you brought in art and woodworking and flip-flop, so you could continue two different groups at the same time, even though we only had the horses available one night a week.
Right, and we initially started that program just because we were trying to save money, because when we knew using the horses that we were going to donate money for the horses' care, and so we wanted to space out in the pilot program. We didn't want to spend too much money, so we just did horses every other week, and then we had a fill-in, and that ended up just to be a time of really unique bonding time where we were able to just have that one-on-one mentorship really blossom, and then they'd come back and learn something with the horses, and then we'd go back in the art and just really ingrain that in our relationship, which was really occupational therapy. This is all places that the kids can regulate. So at any time, if the child needs regulation, they can tell their mentor, and their mentor will bring them there, and they'll just go up and down. They'll swing on the swings, or they'll go up and down the climbing, and then they'll just kind of have a chance to settle, and then they'll come back to the activity.
And this is a public park?
Yes.
That God just provided next to your ranch for all that?
Yes. And I was like, Lord, we need it to be cool for summer camp. But instead, what God showed me was that nobody came to the park in the evenings because it was too hot. So therefore we got the entire park to ourselves for we had 60 people total.
60 people total.
Eating dinner and playing in the park and doing art, and it was amazing. So it was a total
that was part of the program, that you basically walk through this gate right here where the horses live, and you walk down this little trail into the park, and this is where you flip-flop. Like, you have boys sessions and girls sessions, and one week the boys do art, or they do woodworking, and the girls do art, and you flip-flop. One week horses, one week art or woodworking.
Correct.
And finally, Heidi, I know you've partnered with Saddleback Church and Max McGee, and he's kind of the one who taught our first TBRI class a couple years ago now. But so tell me how, what's happening now? What are they asking you to do to duplicate this ministry and help others get something similar started?
Right. Well, Max runs the Initiative for Vulnerable Children, which is basically the orphan and foster care for Saddleback Church. And what his vision is similar to Saddleback Church, where they want to duplicate programs that are working in various places. And so we've developed a one-sheeter, which basically says that if you have a horse or two and you have a little bit of space for that horse and you have some volunteers, you can run the same program anywhere. You can do it with miniature horses, you can do it with big horses, you can do it with 5 horses, you can do it with 1. And so this program can take place urban or suburban, rural, anywhere, and it just will serve where the needs are.
So the church has really seen the benefit of this program, how it's really helped their initiative with kids who are coming from hard places, and they want to empower others to add this type of equine ministry because they see the benefit for everybody. And it's so
Right.
duplicatable and not overwhelming. You don't need a big ranch or a big property or a bunch of horses or
Right.
horse experts.
Well, when I first moved out here, and that was the first time I've ever been exposed to TBRI, and we had our adopted daughter at that time for 10 years, and we'd been working with her with all sorts of things, but never understood how to change our parenting to trauma informed, because we had been parenting her like we did our biological children, but she would just shut down. And so what we learned is in TBRI that they either do fight, flight, or freeze. And I had never heard that term, and that's what my daughter did, was freeze. And so we would try to discipline her or teach her or show her something that we wanted her to do, but she would be in the complete frozen state, which is just like what the horses do. And so the more I learned about TBRI and the more I knew about horses, I was like, oh my gosh, TBRI is going to be so much easier to see if people can watch it in this big animal. And so I got so excited about the combining those two. And then when Max saw what the horses do and what the TBRI, how connected they are, he just wanted more and more kids to do it. And so we have 4 stables out here that are doing a modified version of what we do out here, with bringing the horses and the foster and adoptive kids and the TBRI together.
That's awesome. So not only Amelia Grace, but 3 others just in the Southern California area are doing all of this, and it's expanding. It's all in God's timing, and we praise Him. We give Him all the glory for everything He's done here. Thank you, Heidi, for your time today, and thank you, Spirit. Good work with the kids.